So he'll give you power and see how you handle it. The world says power is for self. The Bible says power is for others. Are y'all catching that? I know that was a quick statement, but it was a powerful statement. So the power test is, how do you respond when you get some power? Now, what you might be thinking is, I've never been able to take that test. I would love to take that test one day. But you will get some power one day. Let me explain power to you. Another word would be authority. But let me explain authority to you. It's responsibility. Anytime you're given responsibility, then you have power when you fulfill that responsibility, or if you don't fulfill that responsibility, then you don't have that power, all right? So I want to show this to you in Joseph's life. We're doing Joseph, which is Genesis chapter 30 through Genesis chapter 50. I'm going to have to skip around a little bit in Genesis 41 so that we've got enough time for the message, okay? The first 7 verses, though, of chapter 41 are 2 dreams that Pharaoh had. Pharaoh dreamed there were 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows, and the 7 lean cows ate the 7 fat cows. Then he dreamed there were 7 full grains or heads of wheat, and there were 7 lean or parsed heads of grain, and they ate the 7 full ones, okay? So then we pick it up in verse 8. Now it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. That's talking about Pharaoh. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt. This is actually where we get the word magi from. And I've explained that in a Christmas message, so you have to go back to hear that. I don't have time to explain it now. And they came from Balaam. I don't have time to explain that. I just hoping you'll get hungry and say, I think I'll read about that later, all right. And Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who can interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh. Remember, Joseph interpreted a dream for him in prison and said, I remember my faults this day. In other words, I remember that someone interpreted my dream and I was supposed to tell you about it, but it's been 2 years since then. Verse 14. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly. I just want you to notice this, because the power test comes quickly. You can be called into the boss's office one day with one position and walk out of his office with another position. So it can come, the power test always comes quickly. Now, what I mean by that is you're saying, yeah, but it's been 7 years I've been waiting for this. I know that. But one day it happens just like that. That's the point, okay? They called him quickly out of the dungeon, and he shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. Obviously, he needed a shave and new clothes, okay. Chapter 41, verse 37. So he interprets the dreams. So the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? Notice again, unbelievers recognized a wisdom that Joseph had, they attributed to God. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. So this is the power test. Now, let me say something. The pride test is how we respond to the dream. The power test is how we respond to the destiny. To give you another one, use another test, the prison test is how we respond when bad things happen. The power test is how we respond when good things happen. So let me just help us again where we are. Joseph is now 30 years old. He has not fulfilled his destiny. He has just started his destiny. He has been given power. Now we're going to see how he handles that power and that authority. One day, you will be given power and authority, if you haven't already been, wherever you are, or whatever God has called you to do. But please hear me. It is a huge test, and I'm going to call it something other than the power test just for a moment so that we get it. It is the test of success. It has been the hardest test I've ever taken. It was much harder than taking the test when I couldn't pay my bills. Success is a huge test that we all go through. We get success in some area, and there's a test. In other words, what's amazing to me is like someone says to us, hey, I'm going to be out of town next week, and it's our group leader, our small group leader. Would you teach the small group next week? You say, oh, I couldn't do that. I've never taught the small group. I can't do that. It's not my gift. You're going to have to ask somebody else. And it'd be funny to me if he says, well, I asked everybody else because I thought of you last, but, but you're the only choice I have now. But let's just say he said, well, I really believe I prayed about it, and I believe God told me that you're supposed to do it. And so you reluctantly agree. And then you're scared all week. You're scared to death. You work real hard. You teach, and God puts his hand on it. And you even are thinking to yourself, wow, this is coming out really well. Thank you, Lord. And then people come up to you and say, that was fantastic. You did a great job. You could probably lead a small group for yourself one day. And on the inside, you think, yeah, I knew I'd be good at this. You just failed the power test. So here are my 3 points, and I phrased them in questions. Number 1, from where does power come? From where does power come? Thomas and I are grammarians, and so we talked about this. I had to use correct grammar. But for some of you that are thinking, what does that mean? Where does power come from? That's another way to say it, okay? Where does it come from? All right, but I can't end the sentence with a preposition if y'all don't mind. Okay. From where does power come? Anybody have an idea? God, obviously. Psalm 62:11, God has spoken once, twice I've heard this, that power belongs to God. This next verse, I've told y'all this before about other verses, but I say it all the time, is the funniest verse in the Bible. So I say that a lot, I know, but a lot of verses are funny to me. John 19:10, then Pilate said to him, that's Jesus, are you not speaking to me? Now here's the funny part. Do you not know that I have power to crucify you and power to release you? Can I remind you that he's speaking to the creator of the universe? But watch what Jesus does. Jesus answered, you could have no power at all against me unless it had been given you from above. All power comes from God. There must come a recognition in us that even though we work hard, it's God that has blessed us. This is the balance. There's a balance between, it's just all God, brother, and I've worked very, very hard, but God has blessed me. And then the other side of it's just all God is, well, I know God has helped me in my church life, but in my business, it's been me. Or it is I, if you want me to use grammar, okay, all right. There's got to, in Christians, in believers, we should say, I've worked very hard, yet God has blessed. In other words, a farmer would say, I plowed, I tilled, I planted, but God made it rain. So that's what I think Joseph understood. So I promise you, you will take this test. Now, here's something else you need to know about power. There is actually a God-given righteous desire for power. And I'll explain that in the next point a little more. We were created by an omnipotent God, all-powerful. God has power, so power is not bad. So you actually have a God-given desire for power. Jesus even said, if you desire to be first, then be the servant of all. Timothy and Titus said, if a person desires the office of an overseer, that's the word for bishop, an overseer, in other words, to have power, he desires a good thing. In other words, he's desiring to have power even in the church so that he can help people. Is everyone following me? That's not a bad thing. But if you don't believe that we're born with this desire for power, watch the youngest child in the family if you get a dog. Because the youngest child now has someone to boss around. That was Elaine in our family. When we got dogs, that's my dog. Because she wanted to because she got told what to do by mom, dad, Josh, and James. And that's true, isn't it? Josh, you know, they told us it's fun when your kids get older because they start confessing. Because they know they can't get grounded anymore or spanked. Josh and James, when she was young, would hold her head in the pillow and say, pray about it. I'm sorry. This great Bible teacher that, you know, that's the way he was when he was young. Just wanted you to know he needed to get saved, okay? Point is, where does power come? It comes from God, and there is a good desire for power if you want to use it to help people. And that's the next point. So to whom does power come? It comes to the humble. James 4:10, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. Let me say it another way. Exalt you or give you power if you're humble. 1 Peter 5, verse 5, likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Yes, all of you, old and young, male and female, be submissive to one another and be clothed with humility. For God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And I want to come back to the word grace. Therefore, humble yourselves in the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you, lift you up, give you power in due time. But let me give you, there's what grace is and what grace does. Grace is unmerited favor, but what it does is another one of the definitions of it is enablement. And you go to the root word of that in the Greek, and it's power. Grace gives you power to overcome sin you never had power to overcome. So he gives grace to the humble. He gives power to the humble. It comes as a result of humility. So let me give you one other thing about being humble. Have you ever met someone who has had great success, let's say, in whatever he or she does, and after talking to him, you come away very attracted to the person's spirit and demeanor because he or she has tremendous humility? It's attractive, isn't it? You think, man, that person was just a regular person. And yet she's done this and done this and done that. And, I can remember, well, never mind anyway. So I can get off on, the older I'm getting, the more I have divine rabbit trails, but they're fun. So anyway, so you meet someone who's done a lot for God or a lot in business, who's humble, the person's attractive to you. Have you ever met someone that's been very successful who's prideful? It's repulsive, isn't it? Now, and then I'll tell you something. Have you ever met someone that's never done anything and is prideful? That's just stupid. That's foolish. Okay. So, my point is that pride looks foolish. So let me give you my illustration now. back in the 80s. I was in my 20s then. And for some reason, I wanted to be, again, my father was successful growing up. I wanted to be successful. I had the desire to be successful and to appear successful to people. It was an insecurity that I had. And so at that time, for some reason, some of you will remember this, men who were successful wore lizard skin shoes. That meant you had made it. Okay. I didn't have any lizard skin shoes. I had secondhand shoes from Salvation Army, but I wanted lizard skin shoes because I wanted people to think I was successful. Well, I had a friend who was successful, bought some lizard skin shoes. They were too tight on him, so he gave them to me. I wore them everywhere. I mean, to my kids' soccer games, I wore lizard skin shoes, you know. And truth be told, they were too tight on me, but I wore them anyway. So one day I decided to take our Ford Fairlane. Some of you don't even know that Ford used to make a car called Fairlane. They're now collector's items. Back then, nobody collected them. That's how I could afford it. And so I drove it to the car wash one Saturday to get it washed, but wore my lizard skin shoes. So everyone there would think actually the Mercedes was mine going through the, car wash. And it's one of those where it had the long hallway and everyone would stand at the window watching the cars go through. You know those? Okay. But at the front of it, at the front part, was a place you could get your shoes shined. So I got my lizard skin shoes shined. And then as I was walking down the hallway, people standing watching the cars come through would do this. They would turn and then they'd go. And I was thinking, they think I'm somebody. They're seeing these nice shoes and it's just amazing what these shoes do for me. What I didn't realize was when I got down to the end of the row, I thought, I'm going to look down because they must look very nice shine. What I didn't realize was the guy had rolled my pants legs up like this, and so I was walking. Okay. Yeah. My point is that pride looks foolish. Did I make my point? Okay, all right. So, here's point number 3, and it's quick. Why does power come? I told you I'd get to it on point 2, but it's actually point 3. Acts 10:38, God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, who went about doing good and healing all who were oppressed by the devil, for God was with him. Why does God give power? So you'll do good and help people. Deuteronomy 8, it's quoted a lot, but I've even asked people, because it says it's God who gives power to get wealth, so we'll read it in a moment, but I've asked people even, and why does he give wealth? And many people can't answer that. Now, Steve Doolin can because he teaches about this and has taught for many years about this. Deuteronomy 8:17, then he says, when you enter the promised land, that's where we're coming. He's basically saying, don't say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. When God gives you financial blessing, it's that he may establish his covenant on this earth. That's why he gives power. That's the only reason he shares his power, is so you can help people with it. Let me just give you this illustration. Here's God with all of the resources in the world. Well, actually, all the resources in the universe. He actually owns Mars, if you don't know. When Elon gets there, it'll say property of God. So here's God with all the resources. Over here are all the needs, all the hurting people, all the churches need to be built, all the poverty, all the difficulties, all the sex trafficking, all the horrible atrocities that sin has brought into the world. Another way business leaders to say this is, here's all the supply, all of it, and here's all the demand. Have you ever thought about what's in the middle? You are. Let me say it another way. God is looking for distributors. He wants to get all the resources over there. He just needs a distributor. So he'll give you power and see how you handle it. The world says power is for self. God, the Bible says power is for others. Are y'all catching that? I know that was a quick statement, but it was a powerful statement. All right, so let me give you an illustration, and then we're done. When our church was smaller, I've lost touch with him, so I don't know whether he's still a member of the church, or we just haven't talked in a while, but he's a very busy person. But we used to go to lunch a lot, spend time together. It's a man named Juan Hernandez. So Juan has run the presidential campaign for many presidents, probably over 10 in Central and South American countries to be elected. And he's Dr. Juan Hernandez. But he's a political strategist that every liberal's afraid of in Central and South America because he's a strong believer. He won the first presidential campaign he ran was for Vicente Fox, and he led him to Christ, and then he led 13 out of 24 of his cabinet members to Christ. Okay? So and now every time I've talked to him since then, and we have talked, I just don't know where he is. I haven't talked to him in the last year or so. But he's in some country running a presidential campaign, and the presidential campaign can be in last place, and the thing they're scared of is if Juan Hernandez comes in to run the campaign, because that's how God is with him. He's like a Joseph. You follow me? Okay. So after a Saturday night service, when the church was smaller, I was standing greeting people, and this couple came up that I knew and said, hey, we want to introduce so-and-so. She and her husband have been missionaries to Mexico for 40 years. And I'm just overwhelmed. I think, wow, I'm meeting saints right now. I mean, missionaries for 40 years, And I said, oh, it's so wonderful to meet you. I said, I just feel like asking you, is there something that I can pray with you about? And she started to cry, and she said, yes. She said, my husband is still in Mexico. We have a 1-year furlough. And I was released, but there's a problem with his visa, and he's been there 2 months. We've been separated 2 months. And it's 2 months of our 1-year furlough, And we've tried every avenue, and we don't know what it is. And I said, well, we have a guy in our church named Juan Hernandez who knows a lot and has helped he knows the president very well. So I said, let me get your name and number and talk to him to see if he can do something to help. Next service, I'm standing down at the front talking to people after the service. This guy comes up and said, hey, I wanted to introduce myself to you. I haven't met you yet. We're new here at the church. And his name was Jose something. I don't remember his last name. He helped translate one of my books into Spanish. And he said, I'm Juan Hernandez's cousin. And I said, oh, I want to get in touch with Juan because I told him about this lady and about her husband. And he said to me, I will take care of it. And I said, okay. I said, how will you take care of it? He said, I'm the Minister of Immigration for Mexico. And so because it was my first time to meet him, I was trying to not impose on him. So I said, well, hey, listen, if you run into any problems or something, then he said to me like this, I will not run into any problems. I will take care of it. On Monday, he had his visa. On Tuesday, he boarded a flight and came home, the missionary. The missionary organization extended their furlough so they'd have a full year. And at the end of the year, the man passed away and went to be with the Lord. But he's got to spend the last year of his life with his wife. Do you know why? Because a man had power And he knew what that power was for. It was to help people. Omnipotent. I don't know if you know, but that's actually two words put together. Omni, which means all, and potent, which means power. God has all power. Here's the good news. He wants to share his power with us. And why? So that we can help other people. That's what the power test is all about. He gives us some power and he allows us to get used to it. And then he can give us some more, and he can give us some more, and he can give us some more. So don't get hung up that you failed this test, because we've all failed this test at some point or another. We've all failed all of these tests. But the Lord allows us to take these tests again and again, not so we keep failing, but so we get more strength, and we keep passing and passing and passing and helping more people and more people and more people. You know, I absolutely love this series, that God has a dream for your life and he has a destiny for your life. So join me next time as I continue this series. Hey everyone, I'm Pastor Robert, and thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. Be sure to share what God is teaching you in the comments below so that it might encourage others. And click the subscribe button and then tap the bell icon so that you'll be notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget, you can watch full episodes anytime right here on my YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching.